we
Why
each
didn't
have
the Raptors score 100 points? I don't know.
so we each have why did Goran start? So we each have 5 goals here. Let's start with you.
All right, so my number one goal is make the playoffs proper. Like, not the play-in tournament, like, get through the play-in tournament. I mean, look, there's still an outside chance they can make it up to that 6th seed, although we really need to see a really strong finish to the season, which the team, I think, is capable of so long as they get healthy. They already got Fred back. OG's going to be soon. You know, Malachi will be soon or whatever. But just make the playoffs. And if it has to be through the play-in, that Nets game, I mean, damn, it's going to be a tough one. Look, my only thing is the Raptors have played the Nets well. There are advantages that the Raptors have over that team as well. Of course, they have the ultimate
save that
hammer.
for play-in week, you know?
They have the ultimate hammer in
Yes.
Kevin Durant. But listen, ultimately, if the Raptors have to play the Hornets or Hawks, I think those are beatable teams in my opinion. The Raptors are 2-1 against them both this season, and both losses were right after the All-Star break when the Raptors were not healthy and also just not focused, period. I'm not trying to say those losses should be eliminated. Like one of the wins against Atlanta was without Trae Young. Obviously, that's a big factor, but I think our ability as a team to play small ball against those two teams in particular who don't have dominant bigs should give the Raptors a good edge in those games. So that's my number one goal, make the playoffs. But I see your number one goal is much lower than make the playoffs. Go ahead.
Yeah, baby steps, you know. You got to just lower expectations, especially when it's not a championship season. But I think this is a worthwhile goal. My first one is for the team to finish above 500 in the regular season,
It's
okay?
too modest.
There's 17 games remaining. They need to go 7-10 to finish 42-40. And I'm just looking more big picture. I think it would mean that they would only have had one losing season, the Tampa season, since 2013-14, which is a pretty sustained stretch of excellence, in my opinion, especially if you look around the league, given the player turnover and how teams operate. And also, like, we shouldn't forget that would be a huge improvement from the 27-45 record in Tampa last year. Now, obviously, you can put all sorts of asterisks on the Tampa season because they weren't actively trying to win games during those, last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. Basically, after the trade deadline, they kind of phoned it in, and Kyle was just on the golf course and all that stuff. But, I think just having a winning record to me would it's not going to be a banner that's going to get raised, but it would mean something to me. So what's your next goal?
That's too low for me, man. That's not a goal.
Yeah, Asian parenting.
Number 2 goal, solidify the rotation, right? I'm still not fully sure who Knicks likes at what time, right? I think I know who the 7 guys are because we've seen him cut the rotation down to 7. It's your 5 starters, Fred, Gary, OG, Pascal, Scottie, plus Chris Boucher and Precious Achiuwa coming off the bench. Where does Thad Young fit into that? Is he the 8th guy for you? Is Kem Birch, who's been starting a lot of games, is he in that mix? To be honest, I don't think he's played well enough to be in that mix. And are you starting with a center? If you run into a center, what do you do? So I still want to see the rotation a little more solidified, but that's something where the team has to be fully healthy first, and maybe that's my bigger goal is just get there healthy. What's your second goal?
Yeah, so shouts to Blake Murphy for this stat. Blake, please just keep putting up stats so I can just cut and paste them into the rundown. Franchise record for three-pointers made in a season for Fred VanVleet. So the record right now is Kyle Lowry, 238 threes set in the 2017-18 season. Fred obviously just came back from injury, but he's well on pace. He's at 211 threes right now, so he just needs 27 threes in 17 games.
That's less than 2 a game.
Yeah, so I think this is just basically based on health. Like, if he plays, he's going to get it, and I think Fred's had such a banner year. I know we talked so much about his minutes, we talked about his injuries and all that, but let's not forget, first-time All-Star, stepping into this role, really being the leader and the number one option for this team, answered a lot of questions, I think, that we had coming into the season. So I think getting that record would be super meaningful for Fred.
Yeah, I think that would be a nice memento to take from this year, no matter what happens beyond that. My third thing is just lock in on defense, because I think my concern all season is just this team on paper has great defenders. When you look at them in practice, each of them individually are pretty good defenders, but this team is 14th in defensive rating, only slightly ahead of OKC. All right. And, my question is just like, when are you going to get serious about that and be as solid as you can be defensively? We know defensive rebounding might be a concern at times. We know that they'll foul a lot because they are in rotations, but is there a moment where they can pivot away from the let's force as many turnovers as possible and maybe gamble as much as possible to can we be solid when you need to be? And I think that in order to win that playing game, you're going to need to be really, really solid defensively, because you're going to be facing Brooklyn, and then after that, Charlotte or Atlanta. All 3 teams are deadly offensively, so your defense must be there. What's your third point?
Yeah, so my third one, you gave me a hard time for saying that finishing above 500, is not a good enough goal. So I'm going to set the bar high.
That's like telling your Asian parents that you came up with the honor roll, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Proficiencies only.
Anyways, more personal stories to come in the coming weeks as we struggle for content. But yeah, for Scottie, I'm setting the bar high. I want him to maintain his current post All-Star break averages for the rest of the season. Right now, he's averaging 18.8 points and 8.8 rebounds on 60% shooting since the All-Star break. And I looked this up on StatMuse. So rookies since 1991 who has averaged 18 and 8 on 50% shooting. The list is Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, Tim Duncan, Blake Griffin, and Karl Anthony Towns. Now, obviously, Scottie is a very different player type.
Yeah.
But I do think, given all the potential that we've seen, and especially lately that he's been coming on, I think, this would let the Raptors, however far they go in the play-in or the playoffs, really go into the offseason as the number one reason for optimism, moving forward, is just how quickly Scottie has developed. And I think if he can maintain these averages, then he can go into the second season and we can start setting even higher goals for him. So that's my third one.
I like that one. That's the first real goal from you, I think. My fourth one is, can Pascal Siakam make an All-NBA push? And you might say, well, the last couple of games here, he hasn't been that spectacular. He might have missed a chance. Maybe or maybe not. Because when you've seen the last 2 months that Pascal's been on, 33 games in that stretch, averaged 23 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, a block, shot 50% from the field. Those are all NBA level numbers, especially if the team is really good, which at that time they were. Now, you might think about who's in contention. Well, you got Giannis, LeBron, KD, and Jason Tatum. And KD, by the way, at maximum right now can play 55 games, but let's be real. They're going to make KD in the All-NBA team. Okay, so those 4 forwards are for sure ahead of Pascal. I have no argument against that. But past that, I don't know. I think Pascal has as good of a case as Brandon Ingram or, Jaylen Brown or, all these other guys, right? So, we'll always have to see in terms of positioning, right? Guys like Doncic and DeRozan, they're probably going to make All-NBA, but are they going to be guards or forwards? We'll see. But I think Pascal has a real case. And, of course, he has to finish the season strong. And my question is just, how much does he have to get there? And I think if he can get the Raptors into that 6th seed, if he can have 1 or 2 super viral moments, if he can hit a game winner, right? I think, honestly, that would really propel his case and build his case. But it's there to be made. It's unlikely for me at the moment, just based on how the national media would vote. But he could potentially do it if he finishes really strong. All right, what's your fourth point?
Yeah, so basically for me, the fourth one with OG Anunoby, I want him to return from injury and just have a really strong finish to the season. And right now he's averaging 17.5 points per game. And I know before the start of the season, we had set the bar on whether he could be a 20-point per game scorer. So I want him to see if he can get to 20 points per game. Now he's going to need a very strong finish here, but I think it's been so many starts and stops when we talk about OG. Like at the start of the season when Pascal was hurt, he was anointed as the number one option, and we saw some of the things that he could do. Now his efficiency has come down a lot this season because of the increased usage, but I think there's still a development curve for him to kind of hit. And so I hope that, he can come back from injury and get that average to 20 points per game. And again, something to take into the summer to feel good about.
I agree. All right. Last thing for me, tie up the loose ends on the storylines and the narratives. Utah,
your
let's get that
storylines?
ramen.
Okay,
all right, listen, Utah, I know you got free time. Let's get some ramen. I'll pay.
He's got free time
You
during
pick
the game. You ask him to go during the game at halftime?
Listen, man. Looking at ramen in the arena, all right? But let's just make this happen already. Chris, let's do this home and home podcast on your show, on my show, and let's get all this out of the way before the playoffs so we can focus completely on the playoffs. I don't think anyone's going to want to hear about ramen or podcasts.
So you're saying you don't want Will Lou to be a distraction heading into the playoffs?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm going to only be focused on the playoffs at that point. I'm not going to be focused on all this other extracurricular stuff. Your last point?
So you're going to be locked in? You're going to be like the players? Are you going to shut down your social media? No, you're not doing
doubt that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my last one is just, I know I mentioned earlier this season, point out that Svi was struggling to get to 3 3-pointers made per game, and he still hasn't hit that mark yet. We saw him have the 40-point game with the Raptors 905. I'm rooting for Svi. I'm still pushing for Svi to get 3 3-pointers in a game before the regular season is over.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold out hope on that one.
All
right, that does it for us in the first half of this